this movie is as important and as powerful as any I can recall seeing. And
Yeah,
I
thank you.
feel like the decision in the way you made the movie has a huge thing to do with that, as much as the subject matter is also those things. Um,
Mm.
so it's a lot to ask initially, but if you can just start talking a little bit about the choices from 4:3 to POV camera to the oneers, there's a lot of very specific choices that I think define so much of what we experience. And I'd love to hear
Yeah.
you talk about that, adapting the material that way.
Man, what a way to open. Thanks for saying that. That like it kind of means the world because I'm thinking back to like when I first got a copy of the text and like one of my students who ended up being an archival producer, Alex Westfall on the film, archival researcher. I remember being like, man, like I just want to do all these things, but like, I don't know. And she was like, don't worry, RaMell. They come from such an intentful place. Like I imagine that it's gonna work or something. And like while kind of offhand, I was like, that's true. Like if it's always full of intent, it seems to be justifiable, even if it doesn't work out to be something that feels incredible, you know?
Mm.
Um, the point of view, the oneers, the 4-3 all of them emerge from trying to organize a way of looking and an experience that feels and that deals with consciousness, the camera, attention, and the relationship between people of color and cinema and cameras. It's just like all of them are tied to what I've noticed and or our frustrations as I watch tons of films and I look at tons of images and make both of them. 4:3 integrate, it's like the original format essentially for television. That's like when we really started to outsource images of people across the world. It's also a narrowing in, of course, of the field of view, which I realized in making Hail County this evening is a more interesting way to control someone's attention. And having shallow focus and shooting at 50s and 80s really allows a person you kind of force a person into seeing the way that you're seeing. And I started calling this observational logic
Mm.
as opposed to observation, which is a documentary thing. I also frame in 4:5 and 8:10 because my photographs, so it's easier for me to frame that way. It intersperses better with archival. The oneers were like a non-negotiable because there's have you seen Hell County this evening?
Yeah, yes.
There's that one scene of when I'm filming Kyrie and he's just running around. It's like 3 minutes long, and the way that the viewer's time is aligned with Kyrie's time, although he's moving at a different speed, you know that it's me filming, so it's
Mm.
kind of first person. To me, that aligning character time with human observational audience time is like I think one of the most powerful ways to be engaged in story, because it's the most familiar. Um,
Yes.
but like all of these things emerge and like just emerge from my art practice.
I mean, you just like, I thought I kind of got the why, and I'm glad I asked because I didn't, because there's more packed in there to your intentionality behind it than I even realized. And I was thinking, like, oh, I see the why, but like the time alignment, that's such a good point. Or just
Yeah, it's like once
the
we cut.
perspective beat. You spend so much time in the movie in detail and like
Mhm.
in specific images and locks us into a time and place.
Yeah.
I mean, I also want to ask the sound. It has like Altman-esque vibes because
Mm,
we are hearing this kind of like cacophony, like around us, creating a
yeah.
mood. Did you talk about sound design and like how you orchestrated that? Did it come from some of the same places? And just a
It
quick
did.
follow-up too, like you talked about a little bit the black experience of cinema or of whatever you're undertaking. That's not something that I can relate to or see, but I'm curious
Mm.
to know how that specifically informed all the choices.
Yeah. Really, really dense questions for our short amount of time.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry.
but but I'll say, George, that Sound, Jocelyn Barnes has been a great friend. She produced Hell County this morning, this evening, and we've become collaborators across different mediums. And she introduced me to Nashville, and that really opened up my understanding of the way that sound can not only be outside of the screen, but like
Yeah,
align with consciousness. Like I don't think that consciousness is reality. Consciousness is cinema in its own way in one's brain. It's its
right.
own bizarre, singular relationship between shapes and colors and whatever. And so I'm always trying to get to the dream or the consciousness in the form of the film and in the viewing of the film. Um, and Lucretia Martel's La Cienega also has elements of sound design that like really expanded what I understood to be sound in general in film. And so I got Scott and Alex to, do their magical asymmetrical gritty thing, and our sound designer Dan Timmons and Tony Valente are like wizards that could like use this crazy spatial technology to like place things, and like it's just
That's part
so
of what it was then. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, so, I mean, I wasn't aware of this, but like on the screen, it is three-dimensional. So it's like, I want to place this 8 feet into the
Wow.
speaker so that it feels, like, so that's was only possible in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Um, to piggyback, so I asked the question of the racial perspective,
Mhm.
but the piggyback to that, and it's like so I feel like so important to address like the book. I know Colson Whitehead said in 2020 he felt that he didn't need to write another kind of heavier novel, but Trump won, and so he wrote that. That was one piece of what happened to writing this. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
many. It's 2024. You want again. You didn't align the release, obviously, but this movie feels relevant to all of human experience. But can you talk a
Mm.
little bit about its importance? It is important. I mean, I don't want to overlook that, and I want to give
Yeah.
a moment to talk about that aspect.
Well, who would have thought that like what's happening in Florida with the genuine erasure of history that is just emerging, um, would be something that is happening in a country that appears and presents itself to be as intelligent, moral, and progressive as the US. It's like it's just a huge contradiction and reeks of hypocrisy and is genuinely confusing, right? It's why people don't believe that reality is reality. They
Yeah,
believe reality is fiction, and it is fiction and fantasy, considering those elements. And so the idea that this film is it's almost the irony of it could not, and the timing could not be better, that this film is about exhuming bodies,
yeah.
exhuming history while people are trying to bury it right beside, it's just like um deeply coincidental. And I hope it's like a wink from the universe, which I think on in a social level does have some morality that it wants us to reach towards in terms of human and sentient well-being. Um, yeah, that we're capable of having this film be timed in a place in which maybe people need to be reminded that one, cinema can address these things while also still maintaining what cinema does best, which is give someone experience and empathy and entertain and give them awe and challenge. Um, yeah, but also that there are ways to do it that are unrepressible. If you give someone an experiential monument, you give someone an experiential relationship to a historical thing, you can't take that away. You can't you can't replace that because that's physiological.
I think that's the landmark achievement here is that we're in it. We live it.
Mm.
If you see this movie, you've been there in a way
Yeah.
that's crazy
Yeah.
and amazing. Um, does the documentary ability to there's so
Mm.
much to making a documentary that feels like it's baked into the skill set here, but was there a daunting like, oh my God, I'm shifting to narrative? And you have clearly so much intention and so many ideas about art, but that's a big jump and it's a
Mm.
there's so many big swings here, like with this
Yeah.
the expectations, et cetera. Can you just talk a little bit about that side of it?
It's interesting to think about the idea of big swings. I feel like the primary pressure was to not close the door for others to get opportunities like this, you know? I know, especially after Jocelyn Barnes and I finished the script, you know, all wonders, all POV, like all of the defined ones, real alligators, archival footage throughout, like that. I mean, one, we did not necessarily think that we were going to be making the film. We took it
Right.
more as an exercise of our ideal film in relationship to this content, because what studio would is interested in that, you know? It turns out Plan B and Orion and MGM, you know? And so the pressure was like, oh wow, they're actually going to give us the chance that everyone says that no one gets, you know? This chance never exists, people say. Why don't studios do this? Well, we're getting that chance. How do we not fuck it up to the point where no one else gets it? You know? And so
I love that perspective. I'm so glad you guys got the chance. Sometimes when things just happen, stars align, you did it. I have to wrap up, but I am grateful to you guys for pulling this off. It's amazing. I'll do everything I can to promote it.
no, yo, George, I really appreciate it. And, you know, we could use the promotion, honestly, because one, it's tough out there for people to like read the log line and want to like actually see it.
Sure.
Um, but also, it's so cool to be able to think that this film in its like genuine experimentation can be widely viewed. Like, that's why like I've been doing these junkets and I have energy for years, you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
be able to talk
Well,
about this. Yeah.
yeah, because we gotta hope that it's widely viewed. Like all like
Yeah.
for the sake of humankind. Honestly, I don't say that a lot, but we gotta hope, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, George. It was nice meeting you, man.
You too. Bye.